speaker, David Ng, is a geneticist, science literacy academic, writer, and a faculty member based at the Michael Smith Laboratories at the University of British Columbia. And some of the observations that I was provided with as part of my notes describe David. He's partly responsible for that massive DNA helix emblazoned on the building facade of the Michael Smith Laboratories. For those of you that have seen that, it's most impressive. I'm also told his dad beat up Bruce Lee. His first foray into general publishing featured a unicorn on the front cover, interesting, and his wife and kids are exemplary. He's also delivering a presentation on crowdsourcing and collaboration at the Quality Forum. David.
Thanks. All right, are we on? Okay, bring it on. Okay, so I'm a science literacy academic, and because of that, I often go to schools and I give talks, usually about being a scientist or doing science. And I remember on one occasion about 2 years ago, I actually was at an elementary school, and after my talk, this young girl, maybe grade 6 or so, actually cornered me with a question. And this question was, are unicorns real? And just so you know, this isn't such a weird question because my talk is usually about the scientific method and evidence and things like that. So I actually had a standard answer ready to go for this kind of weird question. And my standard answer is usually something like, well, no, I don't think unicorns are real because currently there exists no strong evidence to support that fact, right? And so usually this is enough, right? Because that sort of answer is confusing to a 10-year-old, and if not confusing, will kind of crush their unicorn belief system at the very least. But she plodded on and asked me a second question, and this second question was, well, do you think unicorns could be real? And so my first thought was, smart ass, right? Because kids are smart asses, right? But then I recouped, and I actually thought I came up with a pretty good answer. And my answer was, well, that depends. If it's a unicorn that's just basically a horse with a horn on it, I'm actually okay with that kind of unicorn, because that sort of can be framed around reality. It's not too unconventional. But if it's a unicorn that could say in a single leap, a single bound, leap over rainbows and spontaneously make glitter at will, well, then I would have a problem with that kind of unicorn. Because fundamentally, that unicorn would actually break a whole bunch of physical laws of the universe, right? And in my answer, I actually made reference to one of the biggies of these laws, the first law of thermodynamics. And so I actually thought I had her beat here, because I have on good authority that whenever you say the word thermodynamics in a conversation, it will kill the conversation, right? But she was unfazed, and she actually followed up with a third question. And this third question was kind of sneaky. She actually asked me, well, what if you see a unicorn in a single bound, leap over a rainbow, and spontaneously make glitter at will? And I have to admit that she kind of had me stumped here. I was sort of thinking in my head, trying to draw in my unicorn knowledge repository, and quite frankly, I couldn't come up with a good answer. And I wish I took her name, because I know 10 years later I would want to hire that girl, because she would make an awesome scientist. Now, kind of looking back at this sort of whole affair, it sort of comes to mind that I just realized that these three questions that the girl asked, are unicorns real? Could unicorns be real? And what if you saw a unicorn leap over a rainbow? These three questions actually nicely encapsulate three nuances that, taken together, define what it means to be scientifically literate. For example, the first question I answered by referring to evidence and strong evidence. And really, that's just an homage to the scientific method. That beautiful and elegant thing that is, quite frankly, the best way to assess information and make good rational decisions. This is so important that you really want all humans to be literate in this process. Unfortunately, humans are not very good at it, right? We don't tend to think scientifically. We like intuition, which is a crappy way to come up with hypotheses. We're all about the anecdote, which is sort of the worst data set ever. And we're all about confirmation bias in the sense that we like to hang out with people that always agree with us, which is hardly peer review. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help that media actually plays into this weakness, where we are every day getting information fast and furious, and often the loudest voice isn't the most credible, the most trustworthy that's out there. So this is why it's so important to be literate in that process. Now, the second question, if you remember, I answered by referring to the first law of thermodynamics, which is to say that sometimes in literacy, it's important to have some facts in your belt, right? And I would actually, so I'm going to do a little science lesson here. This is the first law of thermodynamics. It is so fundamental. And ultimately, what it means is that it is all about the conservation of energy, right? Energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. You can move it, you can track it, you can transfer it. Ultimately, it is the universe's way of bookkeeping energy. And this kind of fact is crucial. I'd say it's so important for you to frame things like the climate change, right? If you know this, then it makes total sense what's going on in our planet. If we have a net DQ of heat going up on the planet, then you can expect changes in water, sea level rise, ice melting. You can expect changes in work being done, wind, waves, storm activity, all to say that facts also play a part in this literacy. Now, the third question, this was the question I couldn't answer. And thinking back, I now have an answer. My answer would be, holy crap! You saw a unicorn jump over the rainbow, right? Because think of the stories, right? Think of the drama, the sense of awe, the sense of discovery. Think of the creativity you would need to make sense of that sort of outcome. And this is where it leads to the third point, which is that science is a culture unto itself, right? It's not just about the process. It's not just about the technical facts. It's also a culture unto itself. Which is why I like to say that science is awesome. That is all. And I should actually say that being literate in science is awesome, because at the end of the day, you have a beautiful process, you have a bevy of remarkable facts, and you have amazing stories that nothing else can beat. And so if I had one hope for healthcare, it's that this type of literacy is also translated to health literacy, because again, evidence should rule, right? And you have a bevy of knowledge that is wonderful. And at the end of the day, health culture is so important. It's as messy and as beautiful and as nuanced and as wonderful as all of the hopes and aspirations of all the people in this room. Thank you.